There we go. All right. And you're on.
Good evening. I'm Douglas Whitley and seeking re-election to the Board of Aldermen in the 3rd Ward of Parkville. I want to take this opportunity to thank Marcus and the Living Center for this opportunity and this first opportunity that we've ever had to have kind of a community get together to talk about the issues and talk about all of the things that we want to improve to make Parkville a better place. First, I'd like to give you a little background information about myself. I've been a resident of Parkville for over 40 years and have lived all those years in Ward 3. I've been married to my wife, Sylvia, for more than 40 years. We met in Parkville and had our wedding reception here as well. Our 2 children were raised in Parkville, attended K through 12, and graduated from the Parkville School District. I've been active in the community ever since coming to Parkville. I volunteered in community events, projects. I've been active in Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, and coaching various youth sports, and helped with the Park Hill School District with various bond issues. I've served on the board of directors for our homeowners association on and off for over a 35-year period, ever since we moved into our home. I've served as commissioner on the Parkville Planning and Zoning Commission prior to becoming an alderman when I was elected 6 years ago. I'm the chair of the Mid-America Regional Council Solid Waste Management Division. That is the group that is responsible for all of the organized recycling efforts in the greater Kansas City metropolitan area. Recycling continues to be a need for our community and our city. We need to provide opportunities to recycle responsibly so that we can provide and ensure future generations a cleaner environment than what we have inherited. I've been employed by Hallmark Cards for over 35 years, working as an engineer and a manager in the facility planning organization, helping to organize their worldwide facilities. That's a snapshot of my background. My priorities for the next 2 years will include rezoning the 4 wards within Parkville, finishing the current Highway 9 project, starting to plan for improvements to Bell Road, lowering the cost of the sanitary sewer system, continuing to help the city improve their efforts to communicate with residents, and make informed decisions about a quiet crossing for the railroad downtown. I've chosen rezoning the 4 wards as Parkville as one of my top priorities. For the last 4 years, I've been trying to rebalance the ward boundaries, and now that the 2020 census has been completed and soon to be delivered to the city, we need to use that information as the basis for our rezoning process. The 4 wards need to have current and expected future populations that are approximately the same size. The new boundaries need to keep neighborhoods and subdivisions together. With the help of the community and city staff, I believe we can do this. I've proposed starting a committee comprised of Parkville citizens, 2 or 3 aldermen, and the required city staff. The citizen representatives need to be from all parts of the city, east, west, north, and central. The citizen input is not just from large subdivisions, but from small ones as well. I know we can arrive at a long-term solution that is fair and equitable that benefits the entire city. My second item is finishing the planned construction for the expansion of Highway 9. We've already had the funding approved for 3 phases, and we're about to put the project out to bid. This project will begin the long process of providing improved sidewalks and safer drivability for the residents that use East Street, or also known as Highway 9. This project has been in the planning stages for 5 years now, and we need to move it across the finish line. My next goal is to begin the process for improvements to Bell Road. Bell Road has been overlooked for too many years, and we need to make it a priority to make it safe for traffic and pedestrians with storm gutters, sidewalks, or wider streets that allow for dedicated walking lanes. Bell Road is a dangerous place to walk or drive, and it needs the attention that is so deserved by one of our major thoroughfares. We need to examine the existing sanitary sewer system that half of the city uses. We need to determine if that service should continue to be run by the city, or if we should sell the system and have it run by an outside company. An outside company might have more resources and funding opportunities to help lower the cost of the system to the residents and make it more affordable. The only solution that we will select will be the one that provides same or better level of service and lowers the cost to users. The parks and trail system that we have in Parkville are perhaps our greatest natural asset. We need to ensure that we use them appropriately for the citizens and visitors to our city. We need to focus on providing amenities that are warranted and will enhance the parks and provide recreational opportunities for everyone. We need to improve our trails with better walkways and look for opportunities to expand them wherever we can. The city is improving its communications and transparency with citizens by providing more platforms of dialogue on social media, increased paper mailings, and by sharing meeting times and locations which are open to the public. Those meetings are broadcast over the internet and on Facebook. I personally post as much information as I can about meetings, events, and decisions on the Parkville Ward 3 webpage on Facebook. Finally, I want to ensure that the proposed quiet crossing for the railroad downtown is not paid for just by the city, but that other organizations that will benefit will also contribute to the cost. Even though this topic is yet to come to the Board of Aldermen and begin public hearings and gathering opinions from our citizens, we need to make sure that the requesters of this service contribute. If there are no other groups that will contribute to the cost of such an expensive feature, I'm not sure I would be in favor of the city proceeding with this change. Parkville is where I call home. My job as alderman is to make sure that it remains attractive and economically sound. That is better represented by people that live here. And finally, a place where future residents will want to stay and raise their families. Thank you for listening.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right. At this time, we'll invite Dr. John Carter to come up and speak. He is the candidate for Ward 3 Alderman.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank Marcus Flores for putting on this town hall. My name is John Carter. I'm running for Ward 3 Alderman in Parkville. I'm a physician and will retire from part-time practice at the end of June. I have lived and practiced in the Northland since 1988 with a 2-year excursion to Arizona and a 6-year excursion to the Jayhawk State in between. For those of you who are old-time Chiefs fans, I grew up in Yuma, Arizona, a small town where noted standout in the NFL, Curly Culp, grew up. He was a noted nose guard in the NFL, and he honed his wrestling skills to become a standout football player at ASU. This is my first rodeo in politics. Why am I running? It was time to put up or shut up. People I talk with express frustration with the current progress in Parkville. As a physician, I'm a man of science. Every treatment or intervention in medicine carries a risk-benefit ratio. After listening to constituents' concerns, I will evaluate agenda items and Parkville projects with the risk-benefit in mind. That is the financial risk to Parkville residents and the benefit to the Parkville community. Noted I said Parkville community. They're the ones putting the bill and will have to put up with the problems of progress. Along with this smart growth, there will be transparency in government. Government serves the people, not the other way around. In addition, I plan to engage law enforcement to keep Parkville safe. A headline recently in one of the local news papers mentioned that crime has increased 16%. So vote smarter with Carter. Please take the time to vote on April 6th. And if you're inclined to do so, please place a check mark by my name on the ballot. I will save comments for Parkville projects in the question and answer session. Thank you for your time.
Brent, if there was a question, the floor is yours to ask.
Oh, that's great. Doug, John, thanks for being there, guys. Don't know that I have a lot of specific questions. I certainly had increasing interest in observations, relative to kind of what's happening in our, what used to be kind of quaint little community. And that is changing pretty swiftly. And, I think some good, some bad, it all comes with growth. But I guess I'd just like to understand a little bit about where each of you stand on, and I know it's in Ward 1 items, and I will tell you, I'm a resident of Ward 2. So I'll just lay that out there on the table first. So I'm with the activities in Ward 3, like I say, I'm trying to understand a little bit about where your support lies with the current topics that are inclusive of, certainly the ball field items that are occurring in Ward 1 and what you see as the needs, quite honestly, within Ward 3, because I've had the opportunity to speak with some other folks out there. I think that they're trying to understand about what each candidate will do to truly represent the constituents within their ward, and what efforts or avenues that you might want to pursue to do so. I've got a lot of friends who live in Ward 3. So those items become topics of conversation, but just on a personal basis, how you see, Doug, I know you're the incumbent, so, maybe what's worked well thus far, and honestly, what hasn't worked well, and therefore what alternate approaches you might take going forward. So I'll stop for a second, kind of rambled on there.
Okay. Honestly, I think our biggest stumbling block that's been in Ward 3 has been.
It's hard to hear. I don't know if that microphone can be pulled down just a little bit, or.
It might.
I appreciate it. That might help. Thank you.
That's cool. Is that better?
Yes, it is, sir.
Okay. Probably the biggest stumbling block over the last few years has been some of the communication that the city has had, and some of the problems that we've had with getting our message out about some of the new developments that are not only on the west side, but also in the downtown district. In many times, the city moves ahead with projects, and we get citizen input, and we participate, and we try to get as much as we can, and the city makes decisions. The aldermen make decisions as best they can. But in many cases, the problem is just what we're trying to say gets lost in some of the messages that are out and about. So I think the city needs to work on improving that communication and getting more information out to citizens, and whether that's more transparency in the process, or whether that's has to do more with the nature of how we communicate. But I think that's something that the city, if you're looking for something the city needs to work on, and we are working on it, is to increase the communication and allow for more and more citizen input, so that everyone feels that they've been heard in the process.
Okay. Thank you.
I have to make a disclosure here. This is what we do in the world of medicine, but Mr. Ermacher owns property next door to me
in the northwest corner of Ward 3. So I do have to make that disclosure to
Yeah.
be transparent. So far, I've canvassed Thousand Oaks residents who are residents of Parkville. And I've also talked, unfortunately, I'm learning the neighborhoods, one north here of 45 and west of 9. The constituents that have talked to me expressed some concern about the projects in English Landing Park, specifically the sports complex. They are not happy with it. They did not give me any specific reasons. They just said they're not happy with it. And I didn't, because I was trying to cover a lot of ground, I let them talk and moved on, didn't specifically ask them what their concerns were with it. I just know they're unhappy with it and they don't agree with it. From a financial standpoint, the project is roughly $4 million. It may result in cost overruns, which most construction projects do. It is getting $1 million from the county on a grant. That means the taxpayers of Parkville will encounter $3 million in debt, roughly for the 7,000 residents in Parkville. That's about $500 per person. In addition, it's being built in a floodplain. I do not think it's a good investment. I would never build my house in a floodplain, nor some of the people I've asked. So why should we build a sports complex in a floodplain? It will result in additional tax dollars spent when FEMA comes in and has to clean it up. And that doesn't include the maintenance, which is pretty high for a ball field if you're going to keep the moles and voles out of it and the weeds. I don't know how this sports complex would be put out to the public. I don't know if it'd be offered to the residents in Parkville. Currently, when you look at the registration for reserving the ballparks in English Landing Park, they're mostly done by professional organizations. I don't see residents of Parkville, and I don't know the number of residents of Parkville who are using these ball fields specifically. So if any projects go forward in this community, I'll be looking at them very strongly from a financial risk standpoint, as well as how it benefits the community.
Thank you, gentlemen. And I think, Doug, I think you touched upon it there a little bit, is just some of the challenge in the communication, and, as I don't know what the next census will be, but, as we move from what always kind of irritated my daughter in that we got 5,554, I think, on the signs out there. And I said, irritated her. She's like, why didn't they just put 55? But anyway, we're probably, if not doubling, we're going to approach that pretty short order, within our community. And I guess that, and you've got new bodies, new players, and I get this undercurrent or undertow of some of the trust issues. And I came up on the phone call last week with the Board of Alderman's meeting. And that, I say that generically because I think it's across multiple items. I don't think it's specific to the ball fields or specific to, TIF or to out west development and so forth. But what are your ideas on trying to re-engage or basically re-energize the people and listen to the people? I mean, just some more tactical approaches of how, in fact, do we get, the citizens of the community more involved and actually having a voice. I mean, I know they go to the polls, maybe not as we would all desire in the quantities, but and that's their opportunity, if you will, to put up the right representative. But what are just some tactical things that you would envision over the next couple of years in doing to ensure that undercurrent of negative trust actually becomes positive trust?
Well, I would say that, again, I think the city needs to have more open forums where people can meet, whether it's on Zoom or whether it's in another format. but I think they need to provide more opportunities for discussion about projects. We just had a special meeting, particularly about the ball fields, and that was, unfortunately, that was a miscommunication between what the alderman had asked for and what the city had applied for. There was two different, it was two different versions of the same story. The Board of Aldermen didn't want necessarily lights, and there's no competitive baseball fields planned to go into English down in the Platte Landing Park. It was intended to be for like Little League and maybe some high school practice fields, but they weren't necessarily intended to be used in that fashion. And unfortunately, what the city submitted as part of the grant proposal that they were asking for included things that the Board of Aldermen weren't really that interested in providing. So again, that was just miscommunication on the part of staff and the Board of Aldermen. And I'm not exactly sure how it happened, but it happened, and fortunately it was corrected. So we have the opportunity to go in and look at what we've provided and what we're thinking about providing. What we have down there right now are 3 ball fields that are used for that very purpose, that there's kind of Little League and maybe some high school fields. I'm not sure that anyone has any tournaments or anything like that down there at this point, but when we're looking at providing the same volume, only maybe a little bit nicer, the intent is to build up the level of the field so it's above the floodplain. If you were down in the Parkville, down in Platte Landing Park, the area where the ball fields are intended to go, this last flood, it never flooded there. And the idea is that we're trying to build that field up another, I guess, a foot or between 6 inches and 1 foot. And then it would be, for the most part, out of a lot of the flood concerns that come into that area. And hopefully that would mitigate some of the concerns that we have about how it's being handled. But again, it was kind of a miscommunication on the part of the city between the alderman and staff.
All I can say is from my experience talking with the residents that I've canvassed the neighborhood so far, they prefer it to remain wetlands. And that's about all I can say at this time.
All right. I just wanted to recap. We had a question from the audience here, but one came in and it was related to that citizen input question about tactical means. You had mentioned a Ward 3 Facebook page. Mm-hmm. Does that, do you feel that there is adequate representation of your ward on that Facebook page? Or what non-digital means of communication do you have for citizen input on your ward?
Well, I try to maintain as much as I can a listing of email addresses of when people give me an email address, I put it on my list, and so I send it out an email whenever there's information that people are maybe interested in, like some of the recycling efforts that are coming up, and the yard waste events that are being sponsored by the city. I try to get those out to people via email and or notice on the Parkville Ward 3 webpage on Facebook. I think there's pretty extensive use of that. I know that a lot of people in Thousand Oaks look at that page, as well as a lot of people in Pinecrest and the National are looking at that page. I'm not sure the number of people that are actually participants or active participants, but there are quite a few members that do get information from there, as well as getting information not only about what's going on in Parkville, but Northland Feed the Kids and all of that kind of stuff that benefit the community as a whole.
As I said, I'm new to this. This is my first rodeo. On my campaign flyers, I will have my personal contact information, which includes my cell phone number, as well as a Gmail address that they can contact me. If I am elected, I will definitely interact with the constituents more. I don't know the best way to do that at this time. I'm not impressed with Facebook. There are too many people of the cancel culture that get too riled up and go crazy on it. I want people giving sound input and sound ideas because then I can present them in a fashion that's supported by science. And so I don't know if I'll communicate via website, a mass emailing. In addition, that will have to be a non-private server that is going out through our email account when I communicate with everyone, but it'll probably be a mass emailing with blind copy to do my communications at this time.
Excellent. Thank you. And here's a question from our audience.
I have a question about Bell Road and what's the overall plan? And are they going to clean it up too? Are they going to ask like the apartment complexes? I mean, specifically Mark IV, they've had those branches sitting out there for 8 months. And are they going to be part of the effort to clean it up?
I would hope that I'm not sure exactly the situation with branches in the road and things like that, but the intent would be to have the city go through and kind of do a sweep of the area and pick up any debris that is left over from the storms and the rest. But in order to improve it, we have to do a study, which a traffic study and kind of an engineering study to look at what can be done, how wide can the road be made, and what kind of amenities can be provided in the road or on a sidewalk.
So none of this has been done yet.
No, it has not started, and that's why I'm an advocate for getting started sooner rather than later. Again, it's been sitting there as a problem for years, and there's been some of us that have been advocating the dedication of funds to be able to get started on that. And I think now we have enough interest that we'll probably be looking at getting that started hopefully this year or the very beginning of next year to get that project started and to get the road on the way to solving the problems of the transportation that's on that road.
Roads, period, are a major problem in the state of Missouri. They attempted to pass a tax a few years back, but it was tied on to another project, so the voters rejected it. If our legislators at the state level would get smart and pass legislation specifically addressing a road tax only to be used only for roads, we might have some improvement in the roads in the various counties and localities. I am a strong proponent of road improvement because of the danger they create. And when someone crashes, the amount of dollars it consumes in personal, health, and other related costs, damage costs. And so I would only be a voice, one of 8 on the board, but I will be a strong advocate for any roads to improve them. Also, data, CHIP study shows that fatalities on rural roads are going up markedly in the state of Missouri. I don't have the study before me right now, but I do have it. If you want to email me, I will send it to you.
All right, we've had a new member enter into the breakout room, Brian Whitley. And I'll just make this announcement again for Brent and Brian. If there's any questions, please type it in the chat or raise your hand and we'll unmute you and go from there. It seems as though we might be coming to the close of this breakout room session. So Brian, thank you for stating no questions. So Brent, looks like we're getting some other people into this room. Brent, if you happen to have any questions, now would be the time to get them in before we close. And Brian as well. If you have any questions, please use the chat or raise your hand and I can unmute you.
I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Today. So.
Thank you. All right, it looks like we have no other people in the room. I had one question that I wanted to get out to, and it's a general question about aldermen and how the wards, how are ward issues balanced across the aldermen and themselves? Is it your perception, or is it sometimes the case that you know, a ward becomes the focus of an alderman meeting, or becomes the focus of a couple of alderman meetings, or how do the aldermen balance the issues of the wards and prioritize the discussions and itineraries or agendas of the board of the alderman meeting?
The best method of making decisions in the past: finger, rock, scissors, paper, rock, scissors. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know because I haven't sat on the alderman board yet.
Generally, whenever there's a project or something like that, regardless of where the ward is, we get participation and listen to whatever the public has to say about the particular issue, gather that information in the course of a couple of board meetings, and then we make decisions about that project and how it should continue. So there isn't a particular ideology behind each individual ward. It's more of what parts of the city require assistance and what parts of the city require some kind of work that needs to be done. And then the board as a whole makes decisions about how to spend the taxpayers' money to benefit the entire city and to benefit and to make those improvements, particularly if they're a safety concern, that we tend to prioritize those issues that are safety concerns, and that would include any of the road repairs and a lot of the other those kind of things. You know, sewer breaks and the city fixes it. So there's a lot of there's less necessarily debate around which ward is getting the money, as opposed to what needs to be happening within the city to improve what the city provides to its citizens.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Dr. Carter, hearing that, do you have anything to say now? I didn't want to ask a question that you didn't have feedback to, so I wanted to open that up to you as well.
My main goals, as with any project or thing, is looking at the benefit to the community with especially safety in mind when it comes to road infrastructure, period. That's my thoughts on it.
All right. Awesome. Thank you very much. I believe that will conclude this breakout room and this session with the Ward 3 Alderman candidates.